All right, welcome back to the How to Relate podcast. This is a solo episode. So, this episode is inspired by conversations I've been having both personally and professionally. And I'm titling it You're in Your Own Way. And what I mean by that is what happens when we get in our own way of making our relationships great. The intimacy piece of Into Me You See, when it feels like we're blocking another person and maybe even ourselves from seeing into parts of us because it might feel uncomfortable, painful, hurtful, it can bring up some emotions that have a long-standing history to them. So I want to deep dive into what it means to have relational needs and how we all have them, how shame and our self-esteem impacts our relationships and our intimacy in relationships. I want to talk about the 4 buckets of shame and how we can start to move from defensive strategies to relational strategies where we can thrive. So, if you are single and dating, or in a romantic partnership, or in any form of relationship, friendship, family relationships, this episode is for you because I think that when it comes to relational conflict, you're going to notice a pattern in all of these. So, let's dive right in. All right. So, first off, I want to understand, what does it mean when someone says, "You're not meeting my needs"? Or, "Are my needs being met?" Or, "I wonder if this person will meet the needs that I have." So, we all have innate needs, and I'm going to bring it back to Abraham Maslow, who you probably know him from Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Okay. And a psychologist named Scott Barry Kaufman has deep dove into Maslow's work. And he really does a great job at debunking some of the myths around Maslow's work. For example, so you might be familiar with the pyramid of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You probably can visualize where it's a triangle and you have safety and security on the bottom, and then you have things like purpose at the top. Now, it was actually a coaching company that adopted this and said, "Hey, we should make this into a pyramid and then we can sell it and we can make coaching companies out of it, and we can, work with companies and agencies and, work with on how they can build their teams in a better way," and all this stuff. It got kind of watered down and misunderstood. But what Abraham Maslow was trying to essentially say is that we all had these innate needs. We have needs for security, we have needs for growth. So, what Scott Barry Kaufman did, and he is also the host of the Psychology podcast. So, definitely go check it out if you want some masterclass deep dives and get a little nerdy into psychology. What he does in his book Transcend is he talks about how we can take the pyramid image and turn it into a sailboat. Okay, so you can imagine that there is a boat on the bottom and that there are sails at the top. On the bottom part of the boat, we have safety, connection, self-esteem. At the top, we have the sails, and the sails are exploration, love, purpose, transcendence. Okay. If life is a vast and often turbulent ocean, you need both. You need both the boat to provide a sense of safety and security, and you need direction, which are the sails. We are hardwired for connection. In attachment work, you see this in children. There is a great video called the Still Face Experiment that I highly recommend you go and look up on YouTube. It was done quite a while back, but what this video depicts is how a child, a baby, and the mother interact, and how the mother's facial expressions mirror to the child. Okay. So in the video, you see a mom who is cooing with this baby. She's playing, she's interacting, baby's interacting back, baby's laughing, and then the mom just goes completely still face. She's still looking at the baby, but she's not making any sort of smiles. She is just stoic, still faced. The baby starts to react, and you can see the baby start getting distressed. She starts to reach for her mom. She starts to arch her back. She starts to whine. You can see the internal panic that this young child is having. What this signifies to us is that pre-verbally, pre-language, before we're able to speak, we are tuning to caregivers and those around us. We're constantly scanning. Our nervous systems are mirroring the bigger people who take care of us. So relational needs, we quite literally come out of the womb having them, okay? Now, as we get older, we start to have different life experiences that might impact how we see ourselves and our connection with other people, okay? So again, going back to the bottom of the sailboat, you have safety, which is your physiological needs being met. Do you have a roof over your head? Food, water, shelter, a job, way to bring in income. So all the things that we need to survive in today's day and age. Connection. Do we have people that we can turn to? Do we have a felt sense of, yes, I have people who are there for me. I have people who I can turn to in a hard time. I have people I can celebrate with. Do I have a sense of community, of belonging? And self-esteem. Self-esteem is basically liking oneself. Can I like myself enough to be in relationship with other people? Okay. So when our self-esteem is not fully intact, and what I mean by that is when we have our deep senses of shame, when we have deep senses of hurt that we carry with us as part of our identity, and we lead with those hurts, then what can happen is we can then delegate those hurts as other people's responsibility to help heal. If I don't see myself as lovable, I need you to love me so I can see myself as lovable. If I don't feel like I'm good enough, I need you to see me as good so that I feel good enough. That our internal perception of ourselves then gets delegated out to those around us. We're constantly creating an internal, external feedback loop. What do I think of me? What do I think of you thinking of me? And then we're bringing it back. There's a spectrum of this. I can own my self-esteem and I can like myself. I might not like myself when I flip someone off in traffic. I might not like myself when I didn't hold the door for the older person coming out of the grocery store. Those are behaviors, those are contextual. So we can have a sense of I can like myself and I can also feel like I can do a better job in different moments in time. We have the and both, that we're checking in with ourselves, we can hold ourselves accountable. It's the difference between shame and guilt. Shame is I am bad, guilt is I did something bad. I didn't act my best in that moment, but that doesn't mean that I am a terrible person who is no longer worthy of connection with other people, okay? Shame, however, will come in and say, you suck, why are you doing this? Okay, so I'm going to, of course, the OG, Brené Brown. Brené Brown defines shame as the intensely painful feeling or experience of believing that we are flawed, therefore unworthy of love and belonging, stemming from the thought that something we've done, experienced, or failed to do makes us unworthy of connection. It's the difference between I did something bad, which is guilt, and I am bad, which is shame, creating fear, blame, and disconnection, leading to behaviors like perfectionism, aggression, or people-pleasing as survival mechanisms. Shame is this intensely painful feeling of being so flawed that you're not worthy of love and connection, which is a core human need. Joseph Burgo is a psychologist who also has studied shame and also has a book called Shame. And he found that there are 4 buckets of shame. The first one is unrequited love, which is the complex emotional experience where one person has romantic feelings for another person who does not reciprocate those feelings. This lack of mutual affection can lead to emotional turmoil that I'm now grappling with through this heartache. You see this in tons of movies, TV shows, rom-coms, all of it. You have someone, oftentimes, I feel like if we're thinking back to 90s, early 2000s TV shows, You have someone who sees themselves as like the nerdier straight A student pining after the popular kid in school. I don't feel like I'm noticed. I feel like I could go to the wayside and be invisible, but I'm pining after this person. I really like this person, and they feel nothing for me back. It's that unrequited love. Now, some people, when our self-esteem, when our relationships around us can help bolster the feelings of unrequited love to carry us through and say, hey, this is really hard and you can get through it. And this doesn't mean that you're not lovable. When we have both self-esteem and solid relationships around us, we can tend to move through it in an easier way. When our self-esteem and or the relationships around us don't bolster that kind of pillow for us to land on, then we're more likely to harbor that as shame. We're more likely to harbor that as sense of self. Second bucket is unwanted exposure. Humiliation and invasion of privacy, like someone sharing a secret after you confided in them. Documents being leaked on the internet. There's tons of those going around recently. The whisper down the lane in the family of, hey, did you hear that, that if it's sort of the whisper tree, you're the topic of gossip among your friend group and you're finding out about it. So these are ways that the unwanted exposure can create senses of shame. Sometimes the betrayal, meaning to reveal, the sense of betrayal is it's revealing something about me that I didn't want other people to see, either because it is private and it's something I do know about myself that I did share, or it's other people think this about me and I had no idea. Disappointed expectation. So failing to meet goals, expectations, or standards. And when the disappointed feeling comes up, we can then internalize it as I'm a disappointment. That's how the shame in the expectations or not meeting expectations starts to arise. I am a failure. I'm not achieving. I'm not good enough. Those are some of the ways that shame shows up around disappointed expectations. And exclusion, feeling left out by a group, feeling isolated, feeling like I'm being edged out, feeling like I'm now the one that no one's inviting and I'm hearing about these events that I'm not being invited to. That can create that sense of I'm no longer belonging, and it can lead to a sense of panic. So these are the 4 buckets of shame. And again, shame and identity go hand in hand. It's like there are these core wounds of identity that we can start to feel in ourselves. And what happens is when we're not aware of what those shame stories are, then they start to impact our relationships. I think that in a very individualistic way, we can say, well, my shame is my shame. What does it matter to you? And your shame absolutely impacts those around you. It impacts them in conflict. It impacts them in how you are intimate towards them. It impacts those around you in how you show up and how thoughtful you are, in what kind of conversations even we're having on a regular basis. Like there are ways in which your shame will show up and impact those around you. It does impact your relationships. It is not this is in a silo, deep dark corner of my mind and no one can see it and it's not impacting anyone. In truth, it is. And it may not be as obvious or transparent, but when you start to look at it, you'll see and examine how it's impacting you and how it is impacting those around you. So, shame impacts our relationships. It blocks repair. It creates defensive strategies. We have Gottman's 4 horsemen. So we have contempt, criticism, defensiveness, and stonewalling. A lot of times, these are defense strategies against something that's happening inside of us. It blocks the ability to get close. It blocks the ability towards intimacy. It blocks that you're able to see into me I'm able to put my stuff aside and see into you. So it blocks the idea that you can feel like you can receive from another person and also give to another person. It blocks self-esteem needs. It blocks the ability for you to fully embrace and love yourself for all your flaws and all of who you are and all the good that's inside of you. And it impairs your emotional understanding. So shame stories are often, it's an emotion will trigger a shame story, and then the context of a situation becomes blurred because we don't do a good job at discerning when we're in our shame story, because often it creates sort of like a fight or flight response. Exploring our emotional stories give us insight. When shame impacts our sense of self and we look to our partner to change that belief inside of us, we're delegating a large sum of our personal identity to another person. Most of the time, the other person has no idea that this is happening, and sometimes the person doing this might be unaware as well. But the framework starts with an emotion occurs, followed by cognitions, followed by defenses, followed by reactions. Now I'm going to put these in reverse because what we see the reactions, there's defense underneath, there are cognitions and a story, and there are emotions. We have the emotion creates the cognition or the story, which creates the defense strategy, which creates how you react. When you're in conflict with someone, because oftentimes this is how it becomes very transparent, what you see are your reactions, what you're defending, like what is the hurt that is here that I'm defending, what is the story that's happening underneath, and what is it that I'm feeling, okay? I'll give an example. The reaction, I start lashing out at my partner after they ask me like what my day looks like. And I think you don't even trust me to figure out my own schedule. You think I'm just so disorganized. And you know what? I'm not even going to tell you what my schedule is like. Just figure it out. Figure out what I'm doing. You're just going to see it while I'm doing it. So why do you need to know? Okay, that's the reaction. The defense strategy is blaming your partner and criticizing them. That's the defense strategy. The defense strategy is blame. The story that comes up, when I hear you don't trust me to do this, it's I feel like I'm doing something wrong. I feel like I might be disorganized in myself. I feel like I don't know what I'm doing with my day and I'm not being productive enough. And when I tell myself that story, I tell myself like, I'm a failure. And that hurts. Oh, I'm not good enough. And I already feel like sad in myself. I already feel hurt by my own story into who I am. When we get down to the core emotion, let's say the core emotion's hurt. Oh, you're feeling that level of hurt. Oh, the story you're telling yourself is that you're so disorganized and you're failing once again. And oh, that blame that you're projecting out on, that's actually more about you than it is about your partner. And that reaction is the thing to take accountability for. So when you're thinking about how shame shows up, this is how it shows up relationally, especially in conflict. Love and belonging are core innate human needs. Why does this happen? And especially, why does this happen with our partners? Because love and belonging are core innate needs. And when we see our partners as a threat, then we tend to react from our limbic system, which throws us into a flight, fight, freeze, and fawn response. And defenses start to arise. So our reactions are designed to protect us. And they are still the things that we need to take accountability for, because saying, hey, sorry about that, it was just myself protecting me again, I don't think that's going to go very far in terms of repair for your relationship. Here's an exercise that a lot of couples therapists use, and I think that this is it can be used in a few ways. So I'm going to actually use this mirroring exercise in a new way. The cliche couples therapy exercise that you've probably heard of and you've probably seen people do in movies or some other form of media is, what did you hear me say? Okay. So one person says, I would like to grab coffee today. And the other person repeats back, you would like to grab coffee today. Am I hearing you correctly? And the other person says, yes, you are hearing me correctly. I would like to grab coffee today. Okay. So this exercise is the reason why it's a couples therapy like exercise that a lot of people use is because it's mirroring. It's, can I attune to you? Can I hear you? And can I understand you? So we're seeking a sense of connection. We're seeking to feel understood, and we're seeking to understand. That is the core component of this exercise. I believe that this exercise can actually be used as an assessment, because if I say, I would like to grab coffee, and the other person hears, oh, I'd never bring you coffee, and you're telling me that I'm doing a bad job at being your partner, then that's giving you information. That's giving both of you information, actually. So the person who's reacting to this by saying, oh, I'm being a bad partner, that is your shame story. That you are going to hear your partner through a filter of shame. And then the defense strategy is blame. But what that filter is shame. Your partner can say, that is not what I'm saying. I'm saying I would like to grab coffee. And that can be true. So then it's, okay, I can examine my story. And I can say, I recognize that this is shame coming up. I recognize that my reaction was meant to defend this idea that I have inside of me. And we can move from shame to guilt. Hey, my reaction was out of line. I apologize. That was a story that I was telling myself about me. And that's the vulnerability piece. When Brené Brown talks about how vulnerability, it shines lights on shame and shame can't survive, that is it. Because what you're giving your partner then is essentially a gift of, you now have insight inside of me and how I'm operating. Oftentimes, these defense strategies are, I need you to see me for my intentions, because shame needs to be seen as good. When we are high in shame, what we're aiming for is, I need you to see me as good. I need you to see me as good because I see myself as bad. If we're just going to create a very general, simple binary of good and bad, you can use whatever language lands for you. Lovable, unlovable, wanted, unwanted, belonging or rejected. Like that, there is sometimes we get stuck in our binaries, okay? And shame doesn't do a good job with context. It doesn't do well with nuance. So to break it down is to say that you can start to examine how these reactions are part of your shame story. The best way to start to move through shame is responsibility. I'm going to define responsibility as, this is your response and your ability to regulate, repair, and receive. When you can emotionally regulate and understand yourself, you can then repair in your relationship to be able to receive the connection that you're looking for. And that reinforces security. When you take responsibility, you are regulating yourself, repairing with your person, and receiving connection. This reinforces security. Your self-esteem wants to feel secure. Your connection wants to feel secure. The idea of love and purpose and growth, like all of these want to feel secure. Think about intimacy and how it's a thing that we crave the most and the thing we fear the most. When we fear it, it's like, oh gosh, what are you going to see inside of me that I don't even want to recognize? I don't even want to see those things. And that's understandable. I don't like people seeing the bad parts of that I deem bad inside of me either. However, when we start to shine lights on them and actually reveal them, what we're able to receive is empathy. When we can receive empathy, empathy is defined as I'm able to be in myself and witness the emotions inside of you and seek to understand that I'm not trying to take your emotions on as my own. I'm simply using my experience to witness yours. So I can stand and see your movie happening in front of me. And I can see you as separate from me so I can give you that empathy. When people talk about feeling like they have a lot of emotional labor, what they're talking about is, I feel like I'm taking care of your emotions and your sense of self. How you handle your emotions is making me feel stressed and anxious. So when someone is heightened and reactive in those emotional realms, what happens for the other person is I feel like I'm now emotionally responsible and I'm taking on the emotional labor. That emotional labor is I'm taking on your emotions because I feel stressed and anxious that you're not sure how to handle them. So that is a big job for another person to have. That is how shame starts to impact relationships. And just to re-summarize, the way to start to move through this is to understand your reactions, what the defense strategies are trying to do for you, the story that's coming up for yourself, and the emotions that you feel. When you deepen your emotional understanding, you're able to receive and give better connection. I hope that this is a framework that you can use in all your relational dynamics. So, if you have any topics that you want to have me deep dive into, I'm more than happy to. You can write it in the comments, you can send me an email, you can ask me questions, and I'll also put a PDF for this exercise in the show notes. So grateful to have you here. And until next time, everyone, stay connected.